We are covering how to build muscle and get toned over 40. You will not see muscle growth if you are missing any of these pieces. It is very, very hard, especially once you're in perimenopause and menopause. You don't have to work out every day to get results. When I saw the most change in my body was when I went from working out 6 days a week to 3. My body completely changed. If you are wanting to build muscle, if you're wanting to get toned, what does eating and exercise look like? Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the latest episode of the Metabolism and Menopause podcast, where we help you understand this new body of yours. Maybe you've started to experience some hormonal symptoms, maybe you're post-menopause, but we know now that your body is inherently different. And those old fat loss strategies just really aren't cutting it anymore. So it is time to learn to work with this new body instead of against it, so you can open up those fat burning pathways, get your energy back, and feel confident again. Today, we are covering a big topic. I'm going to try and make it as simple and strategic and applicable as possible. We are covering how to build muscle and get toned over 40, with what to eat to achieve that, and also how to work out to achieve that. Before we dive in, I want to remind you, it is the last chance to join our Masterclass, Beyond Calories, for women who are doing everything right and can't lose weight. You're going to get 2 different detox meal plans. You're also going to be entered to win a Dutch hormone test and a customized plan that goes with that, if you're one of the lucky winners for that. And of course, you also attend the Masterclass live, or you will get the recordings for life as well. And info for that will be in the show notes for you. So first of all, when we're talking about muscle mass, why do we want it? Obviously, everybody likes to have more muscle mass because it's what makes us look good. Let's be honest. We look fit. We look toned. We have some definition. It's great. But also it increases metabolism, which means our body is better at taking food, turning it into fuel, and giving you energy, as opposed to taking food and storing it as fat. We want our body to have a good metabolism. It is good at burning calories. It is good at taking food and turning it into fuel. Muscle also helps us with insulin sensitivity, which we know gets worse during perimenopause and menopause. And if we are insulin resistant, our body shifts into that fat storing state, telling our body we have enough, let's store, even though you're eating less and moving more and doing all of the things, right? We also know having more muscle is going to reduce your risk of falls and fractures. It is going to improve your all-cause mortality, so longer quality of life and longer lifespan in general. We also know that it's going to help you with your surgical outcomes. Your hospital stays are shorter. You have lower risk of surgical, not mishaps, complications. That's the word I'm looking for surgical complications. Hospital stays are shorter. Recovery is quicker. There are so many benefits for our just life in general, not just looking good. And one of my favorites is the more muscle you have, the more mitochondria you have, which means there are more powerhouses in your body to take food and turn it into fuel. So you have energy as opposed to getting stored as fat. So the more muscle you have, the more spaces and opportunity your body has to turn food into fuel instead of transforming it into fat. That is good. We want lots of healthy mitochondria and therefore lots of muscle mass. It's going to make maintaining our body composition easier. It's going to make it harder for us to gain fat, easier to lose fat, and we're going to look better. We're going to feel better. And it's just easier to maintain overall, because who is sick of losing weight and gaining it back and just gets harder and harder every single time you try to fix it, right? This is part of the problem. And so when we are looking at muscle mass, I want to talk about protein here, because protein is broken down into something called amino acids that our body can use. And so we are going to get protein from the foods that we consume. But if we're not getting enough through our diet, which is why getting enough protein is so important, our body starts breaking down its own proteins, aka muscle, which means we become more insulin resistant, which means we have less space for our body to take food and turn it into fuel. Instead, it gets stored as fat. We have less energy. There are so many negative consequences. We want to make sure we maintain muscle mass. So if we're not getting enough protein, that's going to be very problematic. And so it might be wild to think this, but in our body, muscle is constantly being broken down all the time, broken down, rebuilt, broken down, rebuilt. And so in order to build muscle, we need to have more muscle protein synthesis, so a greater muscle building signal, than a muscle breakdown signal. And so things to note on muscle breakdown, there are 4 things I want you to consider here. 1, Muscle breakdown happens while we are in a fasted state, like overnight, when we are sleeping, or when there are no amino acids available between your meals. Okay, so this is why we want to make sure that our fasting window isn't too long, especially if we're trying to build muscle. This is really important because otherwise our muscle breakdown signal increases. Number 2, muscle is broken down during exercise, but we see enhanced muscle building signal post-workout. Okay. 3, food slows down muscle protein breakdown. So that muscle breakdown signal decreases when we eat food, which helps with building muscle. And 4, carbs are considered muscle sparing. And so when we have enough carbs in our body, that is what our body likes to use for energy. If we don't have enough carbs, our body needs to find energy somewhere else and starts breaking stuff down. And so when you have enough carbs in your diet, it actually spares muscle breakdown, which is great because we know in perimenopause and menopause, our muscle breakdown signal gets bigger and our muscle building signal goes down. And so we really want to try and bring down that muscle breakdown signal and bring up that muscle building signal. This is why eating enough food, particularly your protein and your carbohydrates, and doing proper strength training is so crucial when it comes to putting on and maintaining muscle mass, so that we don't break down more than we build. We're always trying to look at those two things. So I mentioned in perimenopause and menopause, we see that muscle breakdown signal really starts to go up and that muscle building signal starts to come down. And this is because when our estrogen starts to decline, we see that muscle breakdowns or that muscle building signal goes down because estrogen is something called an anabolic hormone, and it tells our body to build. So when it goes down, that muscle building signal goes down with it. Okay. And then when we see that our stress is high, cortisol, of course, we're always going to talk about cortisol in every single podcast, right? It sends a signal to our body, hey, we need more energy to meet the demand of whatever we're doing, regardless if it's exercise, regardless if you're actually stressed. It could just be like doom scrolling on social media. It could be because you had a poor night's sleep. You are waiting too long between your meals. Your fasting window is too long. You skipped breakfast. You've got like in the back of your mind stress about like family or relationships, or taking care of sick parents. You've got deadlines or go, go, go. That cortisol increases. And we know that when estrogen goes down, cortisol can increase so much more easily. So it's almost like, before you could handle a 9 out of 10 on the stress scale before cortisol went up. Now, when estrogen goes down, it brings that threshold down. Now it's only a 5 and cortisol goes up. So you haven't changed anything, but that threshold for where cortisol goes up has changed, even though you haven't changed anything because of the internal changes happening due to our hormones. And so when cortisol goes up, our body goes, hey, we need more energy. If you don't have enough food in your system, if we aren't taking time to do things to actually slow down in our day, guess what? Our body goes, dang, we need more energy. We don't have enough coming into the system. Let's start breaking down things in our body to provide us with energy. So boom, that muscle breakdown signal goes up even higher. Okay, so estrogen going down, lower muscle building signal. Cortisol going up, greater muscle breakdown signal. So we're already at this disadvantage. And this is why we need to be so much more intentional with how we eat, what we eat, and how we work out. Because before, cortisol was lower, hormones were higher, and so we could get away with a lot of stuff. Now, it's not going to happen by accident. We're not going to maintain muscle mass by accident. We're not going to build muscle by accident. We need to be so much more intentional because the scales are not tipped in our favor, unfortunately. So what does it look like to actually build muscle, get toned when we're at this disadvantage? How can we, counteract that? So 1, you need protein and quite a bit of it. So what we like to do is take your body weight in pounds. We like to multiply it by 0.8. And that's typically how much protein you should be having in a day. I typically like to max women out around 150 grams. And this is because at that point, it's really hard to get in. And people start relying on artificial type stuff, right? Your protein powders, your protein bars. We see the keto wraps, the keto breads, right? All those things, because they're like pumped full of fake fiber or fake protein, because people are trying to hit their protein goals more easily. And protein is very filling, right? However, what we see, and I just worked with a woman on this actually specifically, I think it was 2 weeks ago, when I looked at her food diary for her, we were looking at it and most of her protein was coming from protein powders, protein shakes, like the Fairlife ones, right? She was having like the low carb or the keto wraps. So there was more protein in that and a few other like artificial type stuff, protein bars. And she was struggling with like not seeing results, seeing some inflammation, some gut health issues, some constipation. It's because if we are having a lot of those things, those are ultra processed. Like those are ultra processed foods that falls into the 20% category where we want to eat 80% whole foods, 20% fun foods. Those fall into 20% fun foods. And so what we see is there can be a lot more inflammation. There can be a lot of gut distress as well because of how processed it is. There's the sugar alcohols in it. There's fake fibers, right? And so those things can actually trigger inflammation. Inflammation blocks your fat burning pathway. And so you stop seeing results. You also see more inflammation is going to cause more bloating. It slows down digestion. And so you really have to be mindful of those things. So this is why I like to stop people at 150 grams, because otherwise it is hard to get in and we start relying on all those fake, like convenient type things, which aren't beneficial for us, unfortunately, right? So make an audit, take a look. How much protein am I eating in a day? And where is it coming from? Like write down all the protein sources. How many are whole foods? How many are processed? And you'll be surprised because ideally I would like to see 90% of your protein coming from whole food sources. Many people are closer to 50-50. And so you need to be aware of that. Okay, so now that we talked about that, with your protein, we know we need to get enough of that, right? Track where you are first before increasing, because if you go from 60 grams of protein to like 100, you will be constipated. And this is because protein is harder to break down. And so you got to give your body time to adjust to that. Otherwise, you will be backed up and you will not feel good and it will suck. So increase by like 10 to 15 grams a week. Do it slowly. So when we are looking at protein, typically in a meal, we want to see at least 25 grams per meal. Okay. Ideally, if you can do more than that, that'd be amazing. And this is because with muscle protein synthesis, it's slow, or muscle's protein breakdown. So when muscle breakdown signal slows down once protein is digested and for about 3 to 4 hours after that meal. So this is why we want to have meals like 4 to 5 hours apart, lots of protein in between. Then you can have some protein in your snacks in between, right? It doesn't have to be a ton, just a little bit. I typically like to look at things that are not going to spike your blood sugars as much. So I prefer doing like, nuts, cheese, maybe a hard-boiled egg, and then pairing that with a fruit afterwards. Because if you have the nuts, the protein, the fats before having your carbohydrate, it'll stabilize your blood sugars, which is really great because we don't want to see huge swings. So that's a good thing to have as a snack in between. I love doing nuts and cheese with the fruit. Okay, so we are looking at that regular intervals to support you. The other thing that you can do if you are struggling, you don't find you're hungry because you're adjusting how you're eating, which is fantastic, is you can take amino acids. So we're looking at EAAs because those are going to provide those amino acids. That's what protein is made of. And then having that in between your meals can help increase that muscle building signal, right? We're decreasing that muscle breakdown signal without spiking blood sugars because you're just drinking it. So I personally love Kion Aminos. I have a code for them if you're interested. They have capsules or you can do the powders. I personally love powders because I really struggle with getting water in. And if you're dehydrated, increases inflammation and bloating, can block fat burning. And so getting enough water is ideal for me. So if I can take something in a powder form, I'm always taking it in a powder form. I will tell you though, the wild berry and the mango, I do not like. They are definitely not my favorite flavors. If you are going to go with it, I highly recommend doing the watermelon or the lemon lime. Those are the ones that I prefer because I just found the mango and the wild berry just like a bit much. They're very strong. So that's just my warning to you. Or if you're worried about the flavors, you can go with the capsules as well. I always like to tell people, I'm very honest when I ever refer things to people because if it doesn't taste good, I'm not going to have it. Like it doesn't matter how healthy and good it is for you. If it does not taste good, I'm not going to have it. So that's covering protein. Number 2, the only way to build muscle is with legitimate strength training. So when we're looking at strength training, we need to make sure that we are sending this signal to our body. Hey, we need to get stronger because Stephanie keeps trying to lift heavier. So therefore, we must adapt our body to be able to meet the demand that she is doing. That means I have to push myself to get stronger. And so this is where a lot of people are doing the Orange Theories, they're doing the HIIT classes, they're doing the boot camps, they're doing the circuit training, the fitness classes, right? Those things are not going to send that muscle building signal. If you are a newbie at working out, doing those things will, because it's such a novel signal to your body, where your body's like, whoa, we've never done this before. We need to figure out what's going on. We need to adjust, right? But if you're someone who has a history of working out already, it's harder to build muscle mass because your body's used to it. And so the only way to elicit change is to send a new signal, a stronger signal, right? And so how do we send a muscle building signal in our workouts? Number one, you have to follow a progressive overload program. This is where you follow the exact same program for 4 to 6 weeks. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday might look different, but every single Monday is the same. Every single Wednesday is the same. Every single Friday is the same. And when we are working out, every single week, you are trying to increase your strength. So you are trying to lift heavier every single week. If you find that you are like nervous to lift heavier, that's fine. There's ways around this. Slow down your movement. So if you have ever tried, let's go with lunges because people hate lunges. I kind of secretly love them, but that's just me. They're really good for building your butt. Honestly, I give kudos to hip thrusts and lunges for building my booty. It was amazing. So when we are looking at lunges, if you are just saying bobbing up and down, we're not moving our feet. If you go really quick, not too bad. Have you tried going 3 seconds down, pause for 2 seconds, 3 seconds up? Those 10 reps, very different than the 10 quick reps. It is exhausting. You can feel your muscles burning. It is so much harder. And those last 2 reps, you're like kind of shaky. Your form's not super great, right? Like you feel like you could not do more than 2 reps above that rep range. That's progressive overload. That's sending the muscle building signal. The reps leading up to that are what we call junk volume. They're just getting you to the point where those last couple reps are really hard. And so you should not be able to do 2 more above what the rep range is. So if my programming says, okay, let's do these lunges, 8 to 10. If you could do 12 plus, you're moving too quickly or the weight is too light. And so the only way to send that muscle building signal is to challenge your body to a point where it is almost to failure. Like we are getting very close. It's very challenging. You can't do more reps. And then your body goes, okay, so for next time, I need to put on more muscle because Stephanie, week after week, keeps challenging me and pushing me to have to do this heavier. So therefore, we must put on muscle to meet the demand of what she's doing. Okay, so this is where you follow the same program for 4 to 6 weeks. We are really challenging ourselves in those last 2 reps. We can't do 2 more above that rep range. And then after the 4 to 6 weeks is done, then the program changes. Because we need enough consistency and stimulus over time for our body to adapt to it, right? Like think of training a dog. If you train a dog and every single week you're giving it different signals to try and do the same thing, that dog is not going to learn anything, right? It's going to be so confused. It takes weeks of repetition, right? For it to learn it, to adapt. Our body is the exact same way, okay? And we are more complicated than dogs, despite what we might think, because some of our dogs are wild, let's be honest. And so this is what strength training looks like. And so I always like to challenge you, try something different. Try to challenge yourself with strength. Like I love this. One of our clients was like, man, I decided to go on the cable machine. So she was doing like a lat pull down, just see what she was capable of. She was shocked at how much she could actually move. And the cable machines are a great place to try that. They're very safe movements, right? You can really challenge yourself compared to, using a barbell could be a little bit more intimidating, or some dumbbells even, right? Doing a cable machine with like the row or the lat pull downs, those things you can really challenge yourself and it's a lot more safe. You can even try this with like, the hack squat machine or the leg press where you can really push heavier and it's relatively safe, right? You're not moving as many joints. So try that. You'll be very surprised at what you can handle. And it's always it's very empowering. I always found, when I was on this journey and I started lifting heavier, it made me feel so much more confident. Like if you guys could have met me in like high school, early university, I'm not the person I am now. I still kind of struggle with this a bit, but it's like, for me, it was like, oh, I am strong. And it just gave me this thing of like, I can defend myself a little bit. I am a powerful woman. And it just started bleeding into other areas of my life. And, fitness was my first love with this stuff. It's what I went to school for initially. And you got to see this confidence grow on yourself. And then when I was personal training with clients, you got to see it in them too. Like, you'd see people go from like kind of hiding and wanting to work out in the corner to slowly building themselves up to the dumbbells and then slowly moving into the machines and then making their way back to the squat rack, right? Where progressively there was just more and more dudes, right? And it was just this beautiful thing where you got to see people be more confident and take up space. And it was amazing. So follow a legitimate strength training program. We have one. It's 45 Canadian a month. You can cancel anytime. It's like $35 American a month. And we have different programs you can choose from. They change every 5 weeks, every 4 weeks, depending on the focus, right? So for 4 to 6 weeks, you might be focusing on booty and shoulders. And then the next one, it'll be more focused on, let's say, core and chest, whatever it might be. And you're still working other parts. There's like an extra emphasis so that we're not overgrowing any one area. We're being able to avoid like heavy joint injuries and things like that. So we get to play around and make things even for you. And everyone's doing it at the exact same time, which is really fun. Okay, so we covered protein, necessary. Progressive overload, following a strength training program, necessary. Okay, and I want to touch on cardio here. Do not do cardio first, because what happens is you deplete some of your energy sources. Your body with cardio sends the signal, okay, we need to be more efficient with calories. And so your body starts making it so that every time you do that cardio activity, you burn less calories. It's trying to adapt to be better at what you want it to do. And so to get better at running or cycling or whatever it might be, you need to spend less energy doing it. Part of the way it does that is by breaking down muscle mass, because muscle burns a lot of calories at rest. And so more muscle means I burn more calories just sitting here talking to you. I burn more calories when I go for a walk than before. I burn more calories when I'm sleeping. Cardio does not want you to burn a ton of calories. And so your body starts adapting to that. So you want to do strength training first, cardio afterwards, so that you can have more energy, to push yourself harder in the workout, so you're able to have a bigger muscle building signal. But also that way your body isn't favoring breakdown over building. You'll get more out of your results when we're talking about building enough muscle by doing your resistance training first. Okay, next one I want to talk about is post-workout nutrition. So we actually have a guide on this, a pre and post-workout nutrition guide. I'll try to remember to put it in the show notes. Sometimes I forget, but if I do forget, just message me on socials and I'll send it to you. But remember how I said with post-workout, we have an increase in that muscle building signal. However, what happens is that is elevated for 2 hours post. We also see that muscle breakdown is stimulated for an hour or for a day. Sorry. So 1 day post, muscle building is for 2 days post. And so we want to make sure that we are amplifying that muscle building signal and decreasing that muscle breakdown signal. This is where eating post-workout, because remember, food brings down that muscle breakdown signal, can help tip the scale so you favor muscle building. So even though you're typically not hungry after you work out, because we see that increase in cortisol, which can stunt our appetite, having post-workout carbohydrates and protein can really, really help bring down that muscle breakdown signal, bring up that muscle building signal so you get better results from your workout. So the other thing too that's really cool about carbohydrates post-workout is you don't actually need insulin to help bring it to the cells, because insulin, typically we eat carbs, blood sugar goes up. Insulin's like a little taxi driver, picks up the carbohydrate, brings it to the cell. We actually don't need to use insulin because we have these like little, let's call them trains, that open up in the cells and allow the carbohydrates to go in without having to call the taxi, which is great. So it also helps support your insulin sensitivity, so you're not stuck in that storing pathway, and your body is better at using carbs and putting them into muscle to be used and stored as glycogens for your next workout, which is awesome. So better blood sugar control. So having carbs post-workout, great, great benefit. So While we're here, let's talk about carbs a little bit more specifically because they are stored, like I mentioned, in your muscles. And they are what 80% of energy production in your body for everyday functions and exercise. It comes from glycogen breakdown, carbohydrate breakdown, not from protein, not from fat. And when we eat carbs, honestly, all food is going to up your insulin in some capacity, right? We know that it blunts that carbohydrate when it comes up is going to blunt muscle breakdown, which is amazing. This is why we mentioned that carbohydrates are muscle sparing, which is great. And so it's almost like you have these little gas tanks in your muscle cells. And so they get filled up with your carbohydrates. So that way you have more energy for, throughout the day, for your workouts and everyday life, which is fantastic. We want that. We want that. Okay, so like I mentioned with proper resistance training, your body is going to stimulate muscle building for 48 hours afterwards. So that's 2 days. This is why you don't actually have to work out every single day, because that muscle building signal is going to be elevated for 2 days post. So this is why 3 days a week is amazing. You don't have to work out every day to get results. When I saw the most change in my body was when I went from working out 6 days a week to 3. My body completely changed. It was incredible. Okay, so remember, post-workout for 24 hours, we're fighting muscle breakdown. So this is why recovery is so important. Getting enough carbohydrates and protein is so important. And then the following day, it's mostly just muscle building, right? Which is fantastic. So big emphasis here is that you need both adequate carbohydrate intake, calorie intake, and protein intake. Make sure you're eating pre and post workout and have a good workout program to follow for 4 to 6 weeks, pushing yourself to get stronger every single week in order to get results. You will not see muscle growth if you are missing any of these pieces. It is very, very hard, especially once we're in perimenopause and menopause, because the signal for our muscle breakdown is going to be greater than muscle building. So this is why it's so much harder to see this change and get results once we hit our 40s. It's because we are favoring muscle breakdown, not muscle building. So we have to be intentional. It will not happen on accident. Okay. So this is really key. And I want to go over some specifics with like how many calories you're eating, because if you're not eating enough calories or you're in a calorie deficit, your body is naturally going to favor muscle breakdown over building. Okay. So signs that you're not eating enough are that you feel like crap after a workout. You can't recover. You're really sore. You feel tired a lot, even after sleeping well. Workout motivation is starting to waver. Your hormonal symptoms are not super great. Your mood is not good. Your sleep is not good. You're dealing with, almost hormonal like PMS type symptoms, right? These are all signs that you're probably not eating enough. Okay. And if you feel like you fit that category, message me. I will calculate your calories for free so that we can get you moving in the right direction so you can start getting the results that you're looking for. Next one is if you are in maintenance calories, we can put on muscle mass. It's just a little bit harder, right? Especially for perimenopause, just because we need enough food to make sure that we are counteracting that muscle breakdown signal that naturally happens because of our hormones, right? Resistance training is obviously going to be massive in this, but we need to see how much food is going to be best for you in order to put on muscle mass, because everyone's going to be a little bit different here. And so we see this with clients, right? Where some people need a bigger calorie increase to start putting on muscle mass compared to others, depending on the level of stress on their life, their sleep, hormonal symptoms, because we need to take into accordance everything that is going to trigger muscle breakdown and try and counteract it with enough of a muscle building signal. And so it's just this kind of finessing for each person, because it is going to be a little bit different because everyone's bodies are different. This is why it's not cookie cutter. This is why, some people need more carbs, some people need less carbs, but if you're struggling with energy and sleep and not getting results, carbohydrates are typically going to be one of your best friends. It can do wonders for you, especially if you're struggling with sleep. So when we are talking about eating in a surplus then, which I know sounds absolutely freaking terrifying, the best and most effective way to see improvements from your workouts are going to be making sure that we are putting enough carbohydrates pre and post workout. So the first question you're probably asking is, but won't I get fat if I start eating more carbohydrates? Some body fat can be expected, right? But it should not be excessive. This is why we're increasing slowly. It doesn't have to be a huge increase, like small changes, small changes. So the best way to minimize fat gain while doing this is by eating consistent calories. So we're not up and down all the time. We're staying within a 200 calorie range window day to day. We don't want to see like 400 above one day, 200 below. Like we need to see some consistency, and also obviously working out in a way that actually builds muscle mass, that stimulates that muscle building signal. We want to make sure that you are recovering properly. If you are stressed, that is a recipe for fat gain. We do not want that. We want to make sure you're eating 80% whole foods, like all the things that we always talk about here. But remember that in the pursuit of muscle gain, you will not be super lean. And I think this is something that's really hard for people because everyone wants to be smaller, right? But we want to be smaller and defined. That can only happen if we have enough muscle mass. And so everything's in seasons. You're doing a build for a bit and then going into your deficit. Maybe then we're maintaining for a bit. Then we're focusing on building muscle again. And building muscle takes time. It's not going to be super quick. It is very easy to lose muscle mass. It is much harder to build it. And so when we are going to a fat loss phase, when we are going into a deficit, we want to make sure that we are doing it at a moderate rate, because the faster the scale drops, the greater the percentage of that is coming from muscle mass. And so then you end up having a higher body fat percentage, even though you're lighter. We don't want that. We want to maintain as much muscle mass as we can and only lose fat. And so this is where it can be really quite a struggle mentally, because we just want to see the scale move really quickly, right? But that's not what we want. The clients who have seen the most success have been the ones that have been more patient, who lose weight more slowly. Their before and after pictures are significantly better. There's more muscle tone, there's more definition compared to those who are rushing, right? And we pull them back. We try to slow down that rate of loss, which people are like, what? That's insane. But what do you want to look at the end? Is the scale number that matters? Or is it the way that you look and fit in your clothes? For me, it's always been look and fit in my clothes. The place where I have been the leanest, where I've looked the strongest, where I've had the most muscle definition, I'm almost 10 pounds lighter, or 10 pounds heavier, than a photo that I have where I look the softest. I'm 10 pounds lighter. And so I would much rather be 10 pounds heavier and look the way that I did. No muffin top, lean. There was a little bit of stomach definition there. My arms and shoulders were so defined. I had the lines in my quads. It was wonderful. But I was 10 pounds heavier, right? That's the goal, is like what the physical look looks like as opposed to the scale. But it can be really tough, right? And so this is where understanding that when we're in that building phase, you're probably going to look a little bit softer until we go into that deficit and then we maintain. It's all about like these seasons and these transitions, and it can be tough. I'm not going to lie to you, right? So in summary, for if you are wanting to build muscle, if you're wanting to get toned, what does eating and exercise look like? 1, we're eating enough protein, 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, maxing out around 150 grams. We're aiming for 25 grams plus of protein per meal, eating protein regularly throughout your day. If you can, drinking some aminos like ketone aminos in between can be incredibly beneficial. That way your body is going to have a lower muscle breakdown signal, which is good. We don't want muscle loss. The next one is eating enough calories. If we are under eating, that increases stress. We're not getting enough calories in to build muscle mass. We don't have enough of the nutrients to support that. And therefore your muscle breakdown signal will increase if our calories are too low. So making sure we're eating enough calories, again, message me, I can calculate that for you. Eating enough carbs, especially pre and post workout, is very important for, replenishing those energy stores so our body has energy throughout the day. And it's going to help prevent unnecessary muscle breakdown. And then proper resistance training is 100% necessary. Otherwise, we are not sending a muscle building signal at all. That is the only way to send a muscle building signal. And so we need to be aware of that, right? You need to work out the right way. Otherwise, you will not build muscle. This is a very, very key, important piece. The other thing I want to toss in here too is sleep. Studies show if you have poor night's sleep, your muscle breakdown is significantly higher and you'll see more muscle loss compared to someone who gets better sleep. And this is where you do not want to trade sleep for exercise. If you are struggling with energy and sleep, do not wake up at 5 a.m. to work out. Take the time to improve energy and sleep first, then you can go back to that. Because otherwise you're working out, but your muscle breakdown signal is going to be so high, you're not going to get results anyways. So this is, again, it's just understanding what levers to pull and bring that balance to the right place. And again, if you need help with this, message me. I'm always happy to help. Again, we do have that webinar coming up, that masterclass on fat loss beyond calories when eating less and moving more is not working. You will get 2 detox meal plans with that and be entered to win a Dutch hormone test and customized plan. Details for that will be in the show notes for you. I love you so, so much. Share this with your friends and I will talk to you soon. Bye.